Now, you all may be a bit confused. You're like, why does Jono have his dog with him on the Jono Bones Show? And that's because, folks, it's real simple. We are in the dog days of the offseason. Like, we have to manifest topics, okay? There ain't no Saints football going on right now. Ain't no Pelicans basketball going on right now. We ain't got an MLB team. We ain't even got a WNBA team. So we got to, accept that this is the dog days of the offseason. And because it is the dog days of the offseason, my dog said, well, damn, Dad, can I get a cameo? If you're going to keep saying it's the dog days of the offseason. The good news, though, folks, is that we are no less than 3 weeks away from Saints training camp, which means preseason returns right after that, and then the regular season. And whether we have a good year or a bad year, at least we know we will have some things to talk about. Until then, as we do every Tuesday, we will try to make the most of the dog days of the offseason. Right, Shady? Right? All right. She doesn't seem too very happy. I'll let you go. However, the Jono Bones Show will never steer you guys wrong, because even though we are in the dog days of the offseason, we have a very special guest tonight, guys. The great Rosvoglou will join us in a few minutes, because Lord knows he has some great and interesting analysis about the upcoming 2024 Saints season that we want to hear about. So I hope you guys can sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and get ready, because this will be a great This Shit More Than a Game show, and the Jono Bones Show.
You are now watching the Jono Bones Show. We're so glad you came. Now sit back, relax, and get ready, 'cause this is more than a game.
Yes, folks, it is more than a game, and it's damn sure more than an offseason. Like my girl Brittany says, only 3 weeks away. And we know that we're not the most excited about Saints football right now, but only 3 weeks away until the Saints season starts. Now, y'all know how, no matter if it's the offseason or the regular season, we start off the Jono Bones Show. Let's leave This Shit More Than a Game in the chat right now so we can start off the show on a positive note, right? I need some positivity as I try my best. I mean, y'all don't know how bad I have it right now. I had to use the last few days to actually talk to my wife. I had to actually go out with her and do activities together, because I had no excuse to say, oh, but the game is on. Oh, but the Thursday night game is on. No offseason talk. The Pelicans haven't made any moves. I mean, I guess we signed, Daniel Thesaurus, whatever his name. I mean, come on, man. It's the dog days of the offseason. I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying, man. I mean, good Lord have mercy. It has been kind of cool, though. Like, I actually learned that my wife actually likes to read books. I never knew that about her. So getting to know her has been pretty cool, I guess. But it should be a good show tonight, y'all. Ulf Nordwich is joining us all the way from Germany. That is awesome. What's up, Ulf? Thank you. I always tell people This Shit More Than a Game is an international brand, and Ulf is proving that all the way from Germany. That's awesome. That is awesome. Bruce Sanders in the building saying This Shit More Than a Game. You're damn right we here. Bruce ain't going to be here, rain or shine, off season or regular season. My girl Brittany, who was for sure This Shit More Than a Game certified, is in the building tonight, and my dog Justin is definitely in the building all the way in Arizona with it. Jerry G. So you see, I'm loving it. We got some familiar faces, and I appreciate all of you guys who have stuck by this show during the dog days of the off season, because I know the numbers are going to pick back up during the regular season. But I'll call you guys the foundation of the Jono Bones Show. I see you, Carl Dunn. I see you. And y'all going to be here, rain or shine, off season or no off season. I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. My gift to you guys, I'm trying to reward you guys who stick around and watch during the times where there's really not much to talk about, because we're just waiting for training camp and preseason and then a regular season to start. We're waiting for the NBA season to pick back up. Is that I'm trying to bring on some great and special real. Man, we got an all-star lineup. What up, Real Fan Sports? We got an all-star lineup in the show tonight, and I think it's because of our special guest tonight, who will be joining the show in a few minutes, y'all. Rosvoglou, one of the best Saints content creators out there is dedicating some of his Tuesday evening to join the show tonight. We really appreciate it. We can't wait to have him. We are on an amazing run on the Jono Barnes show as far as, special guests, man. I mean, we started off with a Saints Pro Bowl center, which was crazy. And then we had Jason Smith, a This Shit More Than the Game's pioneer. And then lately, man, we've had Ross Jackson, Jake Madison, and now Chris Rosvoglou. Come on, man. Come on, man. That means we're doing something pretty special when we get some esteemed guests like that. But it's all because of all of you guys. I always get my directions messed up. It's the mirror screen, y'all. It's because of you guys in the chat who show up week in and week out and show love. So I appreciate you guys, and I cannot wait to have my guy Chris Rosvoglou on the show in a little bit to talk Saints football, to get his opinion on how he feels about the Saints. And something that I saw this week that I really wanted to get not only his opinion about, but y'all opinion about as well, is that ESPN did a ranking of the top running backs in the league. They did the top 10. And to my surprise, if you see on the top 10 list, y'all, Mr. Alvin Kamara is not on that list. Now, at first, I was outraged. I felt like a Karen. I was like, what do you mean Alvin Kamara is not a top 10 running back? We know Alvin Kamara is a top 10 running back. But then when you start looking at the numbers, you're like, maybe Kamara is not a top 10 running back anymore. And I don't think that's through no fault of his own. It's just how bad the offense has been the past 2 seasons. So I want to ask Chris this, but I also want to ask you guys as well. Do we still believe that Alvin Kamara is a top 10 running back? It's a question that I want y'all to take off y'all black and gold glasses and answer that honestly. Is Alvin Kamara still a top 10 running back? Because I know one thing, Mickey Loomis could damn sure probably tell Alvin, hey, you want a new contract extension? That's fine, but look at this. You're not a top 10 running back. So it'll be very interesting to see how we feel as Saints fans about this. But do we all still believe that Alvin Kamara is a top running back, a top 10 at least running back in the NFL? I'm going to be honest. I'm biased. I still believe he's a top 10 running back. I still believe he's a top 10 running back. And that's one thing, look, I'm not going to act like I'm the most nuanced or smart NFL overall fan, but Bruce saying, I see that Breece Hall was number 2. And I'm like, I know Breece Hall is good, but is he really the number 2 running back? Or is this a case of, again, New York bias? Because all knows the media has hyped up Sauce Gardner-Johnson as the best cornerback in the league, and I still think that Marshawn Lattimore is better. But again, sometimes that's my black and gold glasses, so I try to come to y'all and ask y'all, am I being biased, or do I have a legitimate case? Because I'm not going to say Alvin Kamara is a top 5 running back anymore, but I do believe that Alvin Kamara is a top 10 running back still, and I think that with Clint Kubiak's system this year, he's going to prove it. But look at the top 10, y'all. Obviously, nobody has any reservations about Christian McCaffrey being at number 1. Breece Hall being at number 2 is a little bit, to me, I don't know if I want to call Breece Hall the second best running back in the NFL. Nick Chubb definitely deserves it. We'll see how he does coming back from the injury. Saquon, am I wrong? I mean, he hasn't had that great of a past few years, same way Kamara hasn't. So why is Saquon, unless they think that him being with Philadelphia is going to change his trajectory? But I mean, hell, is Alvin Kamara's trajectory not going to change with Clint Kubiak? Jonathan Taylor, of course, led the league in rushing 2 years ago. I don't mind him being above that. But Bijan Robinson, this might be my hot take, and I know that this is going against this shit more than the game commandments because he's an Atlanta Falcon. But I do think Bijan Robinson, I'm okay with people giving him that title because he looked really, really good last season. So I'm A-okay with Bijan Robinson being over that list. But I hope that Kamara shows that he is still the top dog in the NFC South. Then you got guys like Josh Jacobs, Jamal Gibbs, who showed flashes, but he never really showed to me that he was better than Alvin Kamara. Derrick Henry, you got to give him respect. Travis Etienne, I don't know. So I want to know what you guys think, and I'm definitely going to ask that to our special guest coming on in a few minutes, y'all. We have the great Chris Rosvoglou joining the show. I know you guys are all excited. We have over 100 people across all platforms watching right now to see, not me, I know y'all not watching to see me, but to see Chris Rosvoglou. So let's hear a quick word from a commercial break, and then we will bring on our special guest. Here's a gift just for you for being a fan. Are you going to a sports game or a concert or any major event? Well, buy your tickets from SeatGeek and use the promo code Jono at checkout, and you can receive $20 off your purchase over $50. That's $20 off your purchase. What are you waiting for? You know this shit more than a game, man. All right, y'all. Now, my next guest needs no introduction, but I am legally abided to give him one. He is the host of Straight Up Saints podcast. He is a writer for thespun.com. And if y'all don't think that was impressive, let me give y'all a list of the people that this man has interviewed. I am talking about the likes of Shaquille O'Neal, Travis Kelce, Sean Payton, Trevor Lawrence, the This Shit More Than a Game Mount Rushmore figurine, Eric McCoy. Let me catch my breath. Tony Hawk, Kirk Herbstreit, Deion Sanders, Draymond Green, and did I forget to mention the GOAT, Drew Brees? Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to have him on the show tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the great Chris Rosvoglou.
Woo!
Chris, now usually I have some air on for my producer, and all of my co-hosts are in off-season mode, so they taking a vacation for the next 3 weeks or whatever until training camp starts. But just think about air horns going off in the back of your mind, okay? Because you deserve the air horns. Chris, what's up, man? Thank you for joining the show tonight.
Thank you for having me, man. That was that introduction had me pumped. I was feeling a little bit tired after my work shift. That got me going, so I appreciate it.
Well, I just want to make sure, man, you saw all those names I just listed. Did I forget anybody? I mean, good Lord, you have like an all-star list on your resume of people that you have interviewed. Did I forget anybody of noteworthiness when I just did that introduction?
I mean, possibly. I'm not 100% sure. I will say, though, as you were going through the names, it cracked me up. I would have never thought in like a million years out of all the guys that I interviewed, like if you were probably to ask just like a random person on the street, because of Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce might be like launched up to like number one for some ridiculous reason. And I love Travis Kelce, by the way. I was thinking about it. I'm like, he probably shot up in popularity more than I ever expected. But no, I got the main ones.
The real ones know, Chris. The real one knows that the best interview you did was with the greatest of all time, and that is one Drew Christopher Brees. So let the Taylor Swift fans have their Travis Kelce interview with you. But This Shit More Than the Game community, we always remember that Drew Brees interview you did, which I have a question. Let's start off with that, because let's play a game to start this interview with you, Chris. Caption this. What was going through your mind when you interviewed the great Drew Brees? Because looking at that, man, I wish my wife looked at me that way, Chris, the way you looking at Drew Brees. Were you like having a I made it moment when you interviewed Drew Brees?
Yeah, so I don't typically get, like, when I interview athletes, I don't get nervous. This was one of those where for this one, like 10 minutes before the Zoom call started, I was literally sitting here. I'm like, just don't make an ass out of yourself, because I remember being like, 12, 13 years old. And when I was thinking about I want to work in sports, like the first person on the top of my head that I wanted to interview was Drew Brees. So yeah, I was nervous. And in that picture, I'm still kind of looking like, let me see if I could sneak in a screenshot here so I could keep it for life. So that's kind of what was going on in that moment, if I'm being quite honest. He gave a fantastic answer after too, so thankfully that worked. But yeah, that was going in my mind. Don't F it up and see if you could sneak a picture, because eventually, with the way this media industry works, someday one of my articles on him will get erased. But if I have that picture, it's on my phone. I save it forever.
Well, I know how the media landscape is working with some of these, content being deleted, but I promise you that interview is always in my heart, because you did that interview actually before I even had my platform. And we'll get to that later about how, me seeing the great things you were doing kind of was an inspiration for me to kind of take the leap of faith and say, hey, maybe I should try to, get into this content game. But before we get into the actual fun stuff, we got to talk about the goddamn New Orleans Saints, Chris, because we are 3 weeks away from training camp. So my first question to you is a simple one. How are you feeling about the outlook of the 2024 New Orleans Saints?
Truthfully, I think they're kind of stuck in that middle tier of they could win 7 games, they could win 9 games, and that's how I feel about them. I think most importantly, though, and this will dictate how I feel as a fan throughout the season, just look pretty competent on offense. I think the Saints last year, when I went and rewatched games, I don't know why I did this to myself, but they have like zero identity last year. Like, I cannot tell you for the life of me what they were trying to establish week to week. Like, did they care to have a run game? Not really. Did they care to have play action, even though they know that's what Derek Carr needs, because he's not the type of quarterback that's just going to shoulder, the workload every single week? Didn't really do much of that. So I still think they're a team that they have holes at the offensive line. I think the defensive line isn't necessarily that loaded, but the cornerback room is tremendous. I think their 2 young wide receivers have the chance to become stars in this league. So I think there's exciting aspects to the New Orleans Saints, but I still think they're kind of in that 7 to 9 win range. If they win 9 wins, I guess I'd be saying that's the positive side, but I got to see this offense first before I could really tell you how happy I'll be about the way this season goes. But they're kind of that middle tier at the moment.
I feel the same way, and I feel like that's kind of like the worst spot to be. Like when you're not bad enough to flame out and get a top pick to get the fans excited, but you're not good enough to make the playoffs. You're kind of just stuck in that, I call it the circle of mediocrity when you're just in that middle ground, and it's hard to get excited about it. I found some things like, again, the new offensive system, having Eric McCoy on my show to talk about how optimistic he was about the Saints. You can't help but not get a little excited about that, but that goddamn cloud over me, which is called the Dennis Allen cloud, is really making it hard. But I do believe in 3 weeks when we see those guys in Irvine, California, start to, practice and whatnot. If you got some this shit more than the game blood in you, you're not gonna not be excited, right? Like we love Saints football no matter what. So hopefully it's a positive season. You say that you feel like they're in the 7 to 9 win range. I asked your homie, the great Ross Jackson, a few weeks ago, is this a make or break year for Dennis Allen? Is his seat hot? And Ross gave me a surprising answer. Chris, Ross said that he doesn't feel that the franchise feels like this is a make or break year for Dennis Allen, which shocked me. I'm like, good Lord, well, how many years are they going to go by if we don't make the playoffs that they can continue to say that, believe in this guy? So I want to ask you as a Saints analyst, do you believe that this has to be a playoffs or bust year for Dennis Allen?
Has to be no, should be yes. I agree with Ross, and I think the way he said it was pretty perfect. And for the record, you've been killing it. You talked about Eric McCoy. That interview was fantastic, but Ross too. I mean, Ross is just so good. And I think it was right. I spoke to Ross, then he went on your show, and I was like, dude, I'm just gonna have Ross Jackson on my computer the entire night. So that was a great interview. But he was right, because I think that the Saints look at their team differently than us. Like, us fans are like, man, 3 years of not making the playoffs is freaking ridiculous. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's figure it out. Let's establish something. But they didn't really make any win now moves this offseason. I mean, Chase Young, I guess, was like a win now move for 24 hours before we found out the man needed neck surgery. So, that kind of put a damper on things. I think for them, there are about two things. Do they show progression? Particularly, do they look like a competent football team and look like a complete football team at times? Sometimes the defense plays well and the offense stinks, and sometimes the offense plays well and the defense stinks. Can they find a way to play complementary football at all? Can they find a way to build some type of culture? I think those are things that they're going to look at. Now, if the Saints go like 6 wins or less, honestly, 7 wins or less, I think you got to just start over, because at some point you're literally just accepting subpar football, which makes no sense for a team that in the 2010s, take out that 3-year run of having the worst defense in the league. That's a perennial playoff team every other year in the 2010s. So I think it should be make or break. I don't think it is, though, because, I mean, think about how last season went, and then people like me, people like you have to sit there on a January listening to Mickey Loomis telling us how Dennis Allen's in the same class as a bunch of Hall of Famers. So they just don't view it the same. Like, we might be like, man, this guy's not good. And he goes, but if you looked at Bill Belichick and you looked at his Browns record, it's the same thing. And I'm like, all right, I'll get glasses to see it the way you are. But I don't think that it's make or break. It should be, but I don't think it is.
But, Chris, you brought up a good point about, just how frustrated you are when you cover this team. And that's why, one, it's very appropriate that your show is called Straight Up Saints. But two, even though I view you as a media member and a legitimate analyst, I also still view you like as a fan, because I'm like, especially, on game days, you tweet like one of us. Sometimes media's got to be professional and they can't go at the team the way they probably think they are, especially how the way the fans feel. You let it all out, which I love and I appreciate. And you are like one of the go-to people that Saints fans go to on game days to just like either live vicariously through you and your tweets or to let their opinion be known. So how does that feel, like being seen as one of the ghosts of Saints Twitter?
I will say it's weird though, because like I'm not in the press suite with guys like Nick and Ross, who like if I don't want to like, put myself in hot water here, but like if I were to list my favorites, I love Nick, I love Ross, I love John Hendricks. I think John Hendricks is like sneaky underrated. But you better mute that man on game days though, because he tweets faster than anyone. Like he will tell you to play before it happens. So that's just a heads up. But John's fantastic. So it's weird because it's kind of like playing between two different sides, because like on one hand, I do think I've kind of passed the threshold of just being considered a fan. But on the other hand, like that's how I want to be viewed. Like when a Saints game finishes and I go live, I don't want people to come in to sit here and just get, analysis for an hour straight of me saying stuff. Like I would like you to come away with some takeaways of like, oh, what Chris said made sense, and I agreed with that point. But like, I want you to come into the live stream and be able to vent, because look, I love the analytical part of football, but I think the beauty of football is the fan side of it. And there's something that you told me months ago, and when you said it, I'm like, you know what? No, this is the last time. I'm not buying anymore. And you're talking about with fans, like, it just takes one thing. You could say you're out, and one thing happens, and you're brought back in again. And as much as I get frustrated about this team, the social media account puts up like a clip of Rashid Shaheed having a great,
is it this, Chris, the off-season cycle that we go through?
It is. And the crazy thing is,
fast move, and we back on the bandwagon.
the crazy thing is, Jono, they haven't even made any splashy moves for the most part. It's like they put up a social media clip, and I'm like, oh man, you know what? What if something breaks right for this team this year? So, I don't know. It's weird. I would say I love interacting with people, and I hope, like, if they were dictating whether they see me as, like, in quotes, a reporter or a fan, I'd rather them see me as a fan, because I think that those interactions I enjoy more, and being able to like vent in a passionate way as opposed to like super professional, because I like to be professional, but sometimes the Saints piss me off, and I'm not going to come on here and talk about them in a professional manner. I just rather yell and drop some certain choice words.
And that's why you're one of my favorites. So I guess you can answer this as a fan and as an analyst. But I saw an interesting article earlier this week, Monday, from ESPN, where they ranked the top 10 running backs, and Alvin Kamara was not on that list. He was an honorable mention, which, my instant reaction is, what an insult to Alvin Kamara. But then I was like, well, if you look at the numbers, you look at the stats, should we really be upset as Saints fans that he was not listed as a top 10 running back? You see the list right there, Chris. Some of the names on there I understand, and I'm like, yeah, they can go above Alvin Kamara. But then I see some of these other names, and I'm like, I'm not ready to crown someone like Josh Jacobs better than Alvin Kamara, even though I guess technically the numbers are a little bit better because of his offensive system. But how do you feel, Chris? Do you think that Alvin Kamara in 2024 is still a top 10 running back, or do you believe that this list by ESPN is fair?
I've been going back and forth. Like, I think some of the names on this list are like unquestionably better than Alvin at this point. But the list, to me, like, there's about 5 definites and about 5. If you want to have the argument, let's have the argument. And if you don't care to have the argument, then you leave it. But obviously CMC, I think, is undoubtedly better than Alvin at this point. I don't think that's a question. I feel the same way about Jonathan Taylor. Nick Chubb pre-injury, definitely better than Alvin. But I do think this list is a little odd, because like Nick Chubb, basically we had to watch that poor man's knee explode on Monday Night Football. And like, I hope he's okay. And I hope he plays at an elite level. But I don't know, if you're asking me Alvin or Nick Chubb off of a crazy knee surgery for the second time in his career, I think I might say Alvin. Like, I don't know. Like, it's a toss up there for me. Breece Hall, I know Breece Hall might be the one for people where they're like, why the hell is Breece Hall 2? I don't know if I would put him 2, but man, I watched a lot of New York football. And the one thing I could say about them that worked last year was Breece Hall. I think he's that guy that's going to take that next step. So maybe 2 is generous, but he deserves to be, in my opinion, I would take him over Alvin at this point just because of the age. And I think he's trending up, where Alvin, I wouldn't say he's trending down per se, but he's kind of like flatlined as to where he is at the moment. Josh Jacobs, you mentioned, I don't think Jacobs does enough in the passing game for me to be like, oh, I definitively want him over Alvin. So that one's a toss up. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is a younger version of Alvin. So, like, if you're going off age, I'm cool with it. I think he's fantastic to watch. Derrick Henry, I'm going to be honest. Like, I think Derrick Henry is way closer to wash than Alvin. I respect the hell out of him. I think Derrick Henry's awesome. But I think Derrick Henry is very close to us being like, all right, he just doesn't have the juice anymore. He did, but he doesn't. ETN, I don't know what to make, man. I don't know what to make of the Jaguars in general, but ETN is so hot and cold sometimes. So, I guess long story short, you can make room for Alvin, and you can knock off 1 to 2, maybe 3 of these guys off this list, and I'd be cool with it. I just don't think he's top 5 anymore. But I think that doesn't matter, because, I mean, it's also, he could come out this year, ball in Clint Kubiak's system, and I'll be like, all right, he's snuck back into the top 5. As of now, not top 5. Top 10, I still think Alvin's got special traits. I just think he's been poorly utilized.
Well, then put you on a hot seat with Clint Kubiak as our offensive coordinator now. How do you see Alvin Kamara's season going? Do you think, hopefully he, resigns, get all that contracts that worked out, but do you believe that he plays as a top 10 running back this year under Clint Kubiak's system?
I do. I think that for him, there's so many things that work. They're going to use him as a receiver. Like, we saw him running out of the backfield, which is a good thing to see, but they actually had him lined up out wide. And I've been begging the Saints to do that, because I think, and I'm not throwing shade towards the Saints running back, but it's what they turned him into the last couple of years. They basically used him like Travaris Cadet. And I'm like, He's not that dude that you just throw a check down to. Like, he could do so much more. So I do think with Clint Kubiak, with a coordinator that values motion, values getting his guys out in space, and also if you look at the way everyone at Saints camp talks about their running back room, there's no one really pushing Alvin at this point. Like, I'd like to see Kendra Miller take that next step, but he's not ready to push Alvin out of the door. So I do think Alvin, if he's healthy and the system's flowing and Derek Carr's playing solid football, not great, solid football, I think Alvin will have a top 10 year. I really do.
I believe so too. I'm not saying that because some people think of me as a pessimistic fan at this point, but I do believe that one of the things I really believe that hopefully he stays healthy. But I think with Clint Kubiak's system, Kamara still has some juice in the tank that we get to see some bits of peak Kamara that we were accustomed to from 2017 to 2021. But that's why they play the game. We will see. Chris, while we have over 250 people across all platforms, and we thank you all for joining us on this very, very slow dog days of the offseason Tuesday night. You know, Chris, I'm sure you watched the show before. We don't just bring guests on to talk X's and O's. We want to get to know them a little bit more too. So while we have all these people on the show, Chris, I want them to get to know you a little bit better. And I want them to know that, how did you become a Saints fan? Because you even said you're not at the games, you're not in the press box, and you're not based in New Orleans right now. So how did you become a Saints fan?
Yeah, so I'm a New Yorker, and the Yankees was like all I knew back then. Like, as much as I idolized Drew Brees, before I got to that stage of my like young fandom, it was Derek Jeter, where like you put the wristbands on, you put the Yankee hat on, and that was my guy. So around like 2006 is when I literally just actually got into starting to watch football. And I'll never forget being able to watch that game. No, absolutely. And I'll never forget just like that Monday night, like you got school the next night, but Monday Night Football starting and your dad's going to let you watch the game and you get to see it. And you start to wonder, like, back then at that age, 2006, I was, if my math serves me correctly, I was 9 years old. I was about to turn 10 that October. And like, I couldn't really fathom or understand like why the energy in that building was so infectious. To me, it was just like, holy crap, like this seems like the best fan base ever. I want to be part of that. Now, obviously, you look at the game differently as you get older and realize that there's so much emotion involved. But I remember watching Falcons Saints, and then from there on out, I was one of those people from a young age, like you like to root for the underdogs, and just hearing about Drew Brees was pretty sick. And then you start to get taught about the city and what that meant to them. And that I kind of just latched on from there. Every single year, just progressively kept getting more into Saints fandom. And then finally, I think it was 08. When either 07 or 08, I finally got a Reggie Bush jersey. That was my first one. Then I finally got to Breeze, but Bush was just like so exciting that I had to get him. Sure. So that's kind of how it started for me. And then I think it was, I want to say either 2015 or 2016 when I finally want to like be like, okay, I love being a Saints fan, but now I want to start talking about it like podcasting wise. So that's when I kind of made I don't want to say switch because you're still being a fan, but I kind of moved into the podcasting space a little bit for it. But yeah, 06, which is, a good year to kind of jump in and start watching them. That's when I started, because before that, it was zero football for me. It was literally baseball, and that was it.
So you lucky, Chris, because you came straight to the Who Dat Nation. You went straight to the penthouse if you came in 2006. You wasn't on those first floor, second floors like us, where we had to go through Aaron Brooks and Betty Joe out of man, those dark days. But that is to say, if 2006 was your first year, then you were inducted into this year more than the game. And this shit more than the game way with that Falcons game and a return in the Superdome. I actually did not know that 2006 was your first. I thought it would be like, during the Brooks and Joe Hahn and Deuce McAllister days. So that's very interesting. Have you ever actually like gone back and watched like old tape of the Saints, like just to kind of like get a feel for the history and all that?
Absolutely. Because to your point, you mentioned that you meant the penthouse joke. Like, I love what Andrew and Ralph do for Saints Happy Hour, but they always tell me, they're like, you don't understand how Barry. And I'm like, I know. I'm like, but so I can't really, since I wasn't there, like, I don't understand it. So for me, all I knew was like, oh, like Saints football being a playoff contender, like, it's kind of what I've like grown into. So I try to rewatch stuff so I can understand, because like Saints could go 9-8. And for me, I'm like, man, this is a disappointing year. And for others, like, it's been much worse. And I'll go back and look. I'm like, okay, you guys most definitely had it much worse. So I'll go back and look. I forgot what year. You'll probably have to remind me. What year was it that they had that crazy lateral touchdown and they missed the extra point? Because that
was 2003, and that was peak Saints fandom.
That would drive me up a wall.
You
I watch it
remember-
all the time, and it cracks me up, but that would drive me up a wall if I was a fan at that time.
I had called my mom and dad because they were visiting, I think, my aunt and uncle that day, because that's when the Saints were basically eliminated. I know people go back and say, oh, if we would have won that game, we would have been in the playoffs. No, we still needed a little bit more help that we wind up not getting. But I remember I called my dad, and I was like, oh my God, dad, like, what just happened? And then 5 minutes later, I called him, and instead of like excitement and euphoria, it was damn near tears. And he was like, yep, welcome to being a Saints fan. That sounds like peak New Orleans Saints. Okay, I gotta mention something right quick, Chris. You must be really inspiring people, because we just got a $100 super chat from my guy Bruce Saint, who said he only heard you, Chris, for 10 minutes, and you are speaking his language. He messes with that. This shit more than a game. So Chris, that means when you come down to New Orleans, I owe you a dinner.
All right. Well, I still have to pick. I want to do at least one game. I know they play. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they play in New York this year, so I'm definitely going to be there for that. But I got to figure out which game I want to do in New Orleans. Maybe I'll do two, depending. Like if they start off really rough and the tickets are super cheap, I'll just double up. But like I'm definitely going to do at least one. I got to figure out which one though. I wish the Chargers one was in New Orleans, because I'm a big Justin Herbert guy, so I would have loved to see Herbert in the dome. But obviously, I'd be rooting for the Saints to kick his ass. But so I'll figure out which one, and then we'll meet up and I'll take your offer up on that dinner. Either that, or I'll take a po' boy for lunch, because I'm still craving since my last visit. So
don't quote me on this, but I might be in New York for that Saints Giants. Don't quote me on that, but if I am, a link up is a must. I just gotta make sure my wife
dinner on that one. If you do, absolutely.
I just gotta make sure my wife's credit card is clear and good to go, so I can go to that game. But don't quote me on that. Don't quote me. She's been a little bit more proactive this year with Chris, with blocking me from using it. But I'll find my ways when this shit more than the game. Bruce Saint, though, thank you so much. And yes, man, Chris, you see, that's how much people love you, man. To a $100 donation to the show, Chris. Whoo, Chris, you're the man, Chris. I hope you realize your impact. I hope, Chris, you realize your impact. And I hope people know how much not only a fan or an analyst you are, but they might want to call you Rosvoglou, the same way they might want to call me Jono, because in 2022, Chris, I don't know if you forget about this, but me and you, we want Saints fans. We want Saints fans, Chris. When you were the first one to say, you're going to stir this pot a little bit. You kind of predicted in 2022. Look at the date, y'all. December 28th. Chris let the Who Dat Nation know what time it was. And he says, he just put a photo of Derek Carr and Dennis Adams during their Raider days. And then I came back and I was like, I think Chris is on to something. And I did an elite Photoshop job of Derek Carr in his Saints jersey. And as you can see, since December 28, 2022, this has actually now become the reality of Saints fans. So, Chris, any other predictions you got? I mean, you called this down to the T.
I'm gonna say,
Can you like post a picture of a Super Bowl trophy with like Derek Carr holding it up or something? Jeez.
I want to make one that I know every fan's gonna appreciate, but I don't know what it's gonna be. If I'm gonna make one prediction, that if I'm saying like I'm trying to be right, I believe after this offseason, Chris Olave is going to get like a monster contract that'll probably make fans happy, but that's not big enough in terms of like big predictions. So I'll say it for my own sanity.
Money, Chris. That's not our money.
For my own sanity. I'm going to post the Raiders midseason firing of Dennis Allen article.
Hey.
I'm going to post that on Twitter, and we'll see what happens. Either I'm going to be wrong, which will make me happy because then the Saints are somewhat competing, or I'm right and I still won't be happy, but I guess I'll say I'm right. So I'll throw that one up there. But it stinks because you show that tweet. I knew that was I felt good about that happening. Like I posted that like feeling damn right about like it's gonna be the thing. I didn't expect last year to go the way it did though, because their schedule was so bad, man. Like I keep going back to look, and they played so many quarterbacks that are not starters. Like, when does that ever you never get a schedule where you're like, you probably played 6 quarterbacks that shouldn't start an NFL game. And yet the Saints did. Like, Tommy DeVito was playing, Tyson Bagent. Like, Tyson Bagent started a game against the Saints. Like, I wish I was wrong. I wish I was wrong.
We still didn't make the playoffs. People may not notice about you, Chris, but you are an alumnus of Hofstra University. So I think the question that everybody really wants to know is, who is the more famous Hofstra alumnus, you or Marcus Colston?
Colston doesn't speak enough, so it might be. No, I'm kidding. Marcus Colston for sure. That's my guy. I love Marcus Colston dearly. Anytime someone puts a name the most underappreciated NFL player of all time, like I'll immediately respond with a picture of him because people look at his stats. He's got better stats than like some Hall of Fame wide receivers. That doesn't mean he's a Hall of Famer. I know he's not a Hall of Famer, but it just goes to show that like he is so damn good, and we just never talked about him. And that maybe that's the way he wanted it, but it's kind of frustrating because his prime years were freaking awesome. And that's the type of guy, he never complained. In today's era, like these wide receivers, no knock on them. Go get your money. But like Brandon Ayuk's on every other podcast this month, like talking about his Niners situation because that's the way the game's played now. Marcus Colston never heard anything from him, and I commend him for that. But yeah, it's definitely Colston. I don't think it's particularly close though, unfortunately.
I think I got a hot take that I think Colston is just as good as Mike Evans, and Mike Evans is probably going to make it to the Hall of Fame, man.
I think that's fair. No, I think that's a really good take, and Saints fans are going to have to accept it. I know they all, including myself, hate talking about it. Mike Evans is going to go to the Hall of Fame. Like they're just going to look at the 1,000-yard season stat.
I'm not trying to hate. I'm really not. But
it's Hall of Good though. It feels like for a guy like him.
He's never been. I mean, I feel like sometimes Deion Sanders says, "Is it the Hall of Very Good or is it the Hall of Fame?" Like Mike Evans to me has never been a top 3 wide receiver at any
I was
point.
about to say that. Yeah.
And I have never went to sleep. And it's not an insult because I would say, I'll put Cam Newton, honestly, for his prime in the Hall of Fame. Cam Newton made me go to sleep as a Saints fan. Like, God damn, how the hell are we going to stop Cam Newton? I never went to sleep, Chris, saying, oh, man, how the hell are we going to stop Mike Evans? And I know Bucs fans think that when I say that, I'm trolling, but that's actually legitimate. Like, and I got nothing against Mike Evans, but you mentioned, Marcus Colston in his resume. Sometimes I look at his resume and I'm like, shit, it's better, like you say, than some of these wide receivers right now who are making these big contracts or who are going to get chauffeured into the Hall of Fame. Mike Evans made it because of the Tom Brady stimulus, but I appreciate that you have a lot of respect for your fellow alumnus and Saints Hall of Famer, which is all that matters. Marcus Colston. Chris, usually when you never got a chance to interview Marcus Colston yet, right?
I've reached out like so many times to his team, and they're always like, it's not the perfect time. And I'm like, it's never going to happen. We'll see. I'll keep trying. I'll keep shooting my shot, but it's been crickets for the most part.
The way you're growing is going to happen. Trust me. Manifest it. That's what people like to say, right? You got to manifest it. But you have interviewed a Hall of Fame list of great people. Almost longer than a CVS receipt of the people that you've interviewed. So I like to ask usually when I have a guest on my show, a Mount Rushmore for them and what they specialize in. And for you, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the great Ross Jackson and Jake Madison. Who of all of these great people you interviewed is on your Mount Rushmore for people that you have interviewed?
That's a very good question. All right, I usually like to document like a list of like people. So let me pull that up real quick. For starters, though,
take your time.
I will say like this one's not, in doubt at all. One of them obviously would have to be Drew Brees. That one's kind of a no-brainer in terms of what he kind of means to me as a Saints fan. And then obviously just being able to pick his mind. I mean, these guys, you think that football, and then you talk to these players and they can talk for about 20 minutes on one question and you kind of forget what you even asked them at some point. So Brees would definitely be up there. I've interviewed him once, but it was so fun that like I hope I get a second chance. Deion Sanders was awesome. Like I know that Deion is not for everyone, like he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I mean, it was 15 minutes of just straight up just charisma and just like infectious energy from the dude. Like everything he said, I understand why if he sits down with these recruits, they'd be bought in on whatever program he may coach because like he is one of the best salesmen. So I would put him up there. He was definitely fun. Let me see if I can mix it up because there are definitely a lot of other names out there.
You might make the Swifties mad if you don't say Travis Kelce.
It's a potential one on him. I'm thinking about it. It's possible. I'll throw Sue Bird in there. Sue Bird was really, really cool.
Good.
What I'll say about her was like every question didn't feel so much as like a question answer as much as it did like just a straight up conversation, which was nice. So I put her third. And then, let me see, fourth. I'll go with someone who's not a player, and it's only because I've interviewed him like 3 or 4 times. So like each time, I think I'm passionate about what I like, but then you talk to this guy and you literally realize that like all he does is his job 24/7. And Kirk Herbstreit was really cool, and I mean that guy just loves college football, and everything he answered, like every question, I was transcribing it. And it would be like every answer was this long. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like this guy loves it. He loves this sport so much. So I would put those 4. There's honorable mentions, like Trevor Lawrence is awesome. Travis Kelce was cool. Tony Hawk was interesting, I would say. And I got to transcribe one. I'll probably post it either tomorrow or Thursday with Sean White, and he was cool.
Ooh,
and I really appreciate him. But I would say those 4. I would say Breeze, Sue Bird, Dion, and Kirk Herbstreit. So I have a little bit of a mix. Those probably be my 4 favorites.
I don't want to blow up the spot, but has there ever been any of that? You ain't got to name names either, but have there ever been any interviews you've done where the interviewee was like just not giving you any energy whatsoever, and you were like, good Lord, let me just get rid of it. Let me just hope close this interview out and be.
Absolutely. There was 2. So I'll mention names because for one of them, there was a rebuttal, and I realized it was a sense of reality for me. Like, man, they're humans, and I understand why they don't want to do this one time. So one time I spoke to Saquon Barkley, and mind you, the Giants are like on a 6 or 7 game losing streak. And this man, he didn't want to answer a single question I asked him. And a lot of them were about the Giants and them struggling. So I understand that. And then I spoke to him the following year, and the Giants were on like a 3-game win streak. This man's mood was like completely different from the first time I interviewed him. I'm like, he's not so bad. I went back. I'm like, they were on a 7-game losing streak. The man was probably just upset that they were losing. So he redeemed himself. The one that I won't mention his name because he has not redeemed himself yet. And frankly, you know what? I don't know how much. Actually, let me see. I think he's on the Falcons now. If he's on the Falcons now, I'll gladly mention
if he's on the Falcons, then he definitely goes on to not Mount Rushmore. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I had to check because I thought that's where he went this offseason. So Rondale Moore, who I loved coming out of college. Like I loved Rondale Moore coming out of college. I was asking about where he thought he ranked like in his wide receiver class because it was a really good wide receiver class. And I guess my tone was off. That's what he kind of claimed, but I really don't know. But he's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm clearly the best wide receiver. I'm like, dude, I didn't say like, dude, after I was like kind of silent. I'm like, I didn't mean to insult this man. I just asked him like where he stacks up and like what makes him like special from this group. And then I asked him one more question. He was like really, really cold to me. It was like a 2-word answer. I'm like, all right, thank you for your time, man. I'm like, have a good night. I had like 5 more minutes to go, but I was like, I made this awkward. I probably should have worded the question better. So it's not his fault. I guess.
No, it's his fault. And now that he's an Atlanta Falcon, it's very fitting that he's an Atlanta Falcon. So we can pray for his downfall for this next season or so. I'm glad you mentioned that he's now going to be on my top 5 of people I want to hate on list. So 1, you don't disrespect the great Chris Rosvoglou. 2, you're an Atlanta Falcon at that. So that was God's way of letting you know, Chris, that guy was not this shit more than a game certified. I actually got a good comment though, because even though you are this shit more than a game certified, Chris, my guy at Real Fans Post made a great point. He said, you forgot to put me on your Mount Rushmore. You interviewed me earlier.
Can I do sports media Mount Rushmore? I'll fire one off right now.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I know I'm not media, but go ahead.
No, you're counting at this point, man. You just got $100 super chat. That counts as big time.
That's because Bruce saying it's this shit more than the game certified. But go ahead.
I'm gonna go Jono, Ross Jackson, Nick Underhill, because Nick the guy's so damn smart, it's nuts. And then let me see who I want to put forth because I got to be very careful about that one.
Yeah.
I have 1 spot remaining.
All jokes aside, I don't consider myself media, so if you want to take me out and add 2
no,
names,
I have to. You really like. I don't know how to explain it. Like the energy that you bring every single time, like it just can't be matched by people. So I'm trying to think who I want to put forth that I really like. I'll do a Boo Crew Media plug. I really like Chris Connor. I think he does some really good stuff. So
Chris is the man. Chris was actually the first person when I posted my first skit who I remember it to this day. Was like I posted it. I only had like 600 followers, and none of them were like the diehard Saints fan because I didn't have a brand yet. So, but Chris was the first one who saw it and retweeted it, and I always remember that because that then started this crazy journey that I've been on. So Chris is definitely probably, I never interviewed him, but for what he did for me that day, I just will never forget, small things like that you played a big part in as well. Chris, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I see people can probably see behind you that great backdrop you have with the action figures and stuff. You're not just a Saints fan. You are also, if people follow him on Twitter, a huge movie enthusiast. And as me and Chris have struck up a friendship the past 3 years, I've come to know that he is also a great Marvel Cinematic Universe and just a Marvel fan in general. And sometimes when I watch a Marvel show or a movie, I usually hit up Chris and say, because I'm a general fan, so I'm like, Chris, how do you feel about this as a diehard? So I haven't asked you this yet, so I really want to know, because I feel like, and I'm a general fan, but the last phase since Endgame has been kind of But how do you feel about the MCU Phase 5, and are you optimistic about Phase 6, which is coming up next year?
All right, so I will say I am more pessimistic about future movies for Marvel than I would be about the Saints. I'm not.
Wow, hold on, that's big. That is huge.
It is.
I
No, it
felt
is.
like
But
getting a little momentum back with the new announcements. But go ahead.
I don't have any faith in it anymore. It almost felt like everything that they did well for like 10 years, and they did it really well. They were like, you know what? I think we can just make shows for every character. We can cheapen up the quality and people will still eat it up. And at first they did. Like the numbers were still really good. Box office was still really good. And then you watch the last couple of projects, things start not making as much money. The ratings in terms of critic scores aren't that good. And you go, all right, you guys went for the, quantity over quality. Didn't work. Now you could try and scale it back. But I kind of feel like the damage is already done for some people. I will still, admittedly, because I go to the movie theaters all the damn time, I will still go see what they put out. Like it's, for me, I'm not one of those people that's going to boycott something. I think that's like, I just think that's so crazy. But like, I don't have the excitement anymore. Like, for example, the timing of it's not ideal, but I have to go to Greece next week for a wedding, and it's going to stop me from seeing Deadpool 3 opening night. And years ago, I would have been sick enough to been like, we have to make sure that I return in time to see it opening night, or else all bets are off. And I'm saying this as someone who literally has like a Deadpool, thing right here. Like that's a big thing. I got Deadpool right up there. And now I'm like, I will see it when I see it. And it upsets me because, man, those movies were awesome. But as I'm getting older now, I'm starting to like different movies. And I know my favorite thing about when you see a movie is you'll tweet that you loved it, like you liked it so much it made you cry. And I love that some people have not caught on to that shtick, but it's amazing.
You mean shtick?
And there's no way Bad Boys made you cry. It was awesome, but there's no way.
No, I never lie on Twitter, but let's keep going.
But no, like as I get older, like I rather just watch other movies at this point, and I hope they draw me back in because I'll still watch them. My excitement is not that high. I'll put it that way.
You just casually dropped a subtle flex though when you say I'm gonna be in Greece next week. Like, well, one, safe travels, and two, I hope you get some good pictures and show on your Twitter, man. Because shit, I want to go to Greece.
I'm not a guy who likes to be on planes for long, so the 10-hour flight's gonna absolutely kill me. Hopefully not literally, just I meant figuratively. But I think that I'll try and get some good photos. I'm not an artistic guy, but I will try my best to put out some photos out there. And I'm making sure that so I spent Monday recording like God knows how many videos so I can post evergreen content for people once next week starts. Whoever's listening right now will know I'm in Greece, but everyone else might be a little confused. They won't know. So I'm trying to keep it going.
Bad Juju, who has a great blossoming Marvel content channel, he asks, are you a fan of Thor?
I am, but I absolutely hated Love and Thunder. I think the first Thor is like super underrated. I don't know if that's a hot take or anything. Obviously, everyone kind of hates Dark World. I thought Ragnarok was awesome, and Love and Thunder was really disappointing. I know they're making a fifth one though, and I'm totally cool with it because I'm a big Thor guy and I love Hemsworth. But last one was that one left a bad taste in my mouth. I was not feeling it. It kind of felt like an SNL skit if it was an entire 90-minute movie, and I still can't believe that's what they went with. But I guess they thought that it looked good.
I'm a general fan, so like I have no dog in the race when it comes to critiquing Marvel movies. But I agree with you. Like the last few ones were a little bit like, nothing special. I have high hopes for Deadpool though, and I'm sure that there's going to be some cameos and maybe even some storylines that propel what hopefully will be a strong Phase 6, and hopefully they can win back. I guess your never-ending optimism, Chris. But sometimes one of those things, Chris, where like the peak was just so damn good. And I'm a diehard Simpsons fan, right? And people always say the Simpsons ain't what they used to be, and I'm like, I get it, but because their peak was so good when the Simpsons first came out, that even if the show now is just solid or good, it's seen as a downgrade because of how good the peak was. But Marvel was so good early on that now, even when like there's a movie that's just solid, it's like, yeah, but it wasn't as great as it was, back then. So I feel like it's unfair sometimes, like when you are so great that you are at the mercy of always having to try to live up to that peak. But I do agree with you that some of the stuff that they have put out is mid, like Atlanta Falcons level mid. So
Sometimes worse, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would settle for Atlanta Falcons mid for some of these things, man. I agree with you.
Let's not go that far because Atlanta Falcons mid is pretty bad.
Well, not
That's like
football
bottom
wise,
of the
but
barrel.
content wise, I guess I could. Like, I agree with you. They're victim of their own success. But then I see some of these things like it might be good, but I saw they posted this week like their trailer for the Agatha show. And again, it could be good and it could surprise the heck out of me. But like, I never watched Marvel content going, you know who really needs a show? Agatha. That's who needs a show. Like I just, I didn't think it that way, but
I think that's a problem too. I think they started doing way. I mean, I'm not mad because I enjoy just consuming content, but like when Hawkeye and stuff are getting show, Hawkeye, whatever her name, I was like, this is just getting silly and not worth me dedicating so much time with. But we'll see what Deadpool does and if it can kind of stir it back a little bit in the right direction. You like to give out movie reviews on your Twitter. They're not as good as mine. As you just mentioned, my movie reviews are top of the line when I give mine out on Twitter. There's one movie, Chris, that I want to watch with you right quick, live on the Jono Barnes Show. And afterwards, you can finally give me out of your 5-star rating how good this movie was, okay?
Let's do it.
If you're new to the Jono Barnes channel, this might be a first timer for you. If you're true to the Jono Barnes channel, this is a classic in my opinion, but we are going to watch it with Chris Rosvoglou for the first time together.
Scrimmage, he goes into the end zone. Touchdown, Drew Brees.
And so it was a big win for the Saints, but now our attention turns over to who will be their starting quarterback now that Jameis Winston's out. That's weird. Show doesn't even have a phone line. Who's this?
Hello, is this Chris? Chris Rosvoglou?
Actually, it's pronounced Rosvoglou. Who is this again?
Don't worry about that, Mr. Rosvoglou. And all you Saints fans, hey, I have a question for you guys. How's life without Drew Brees, eh? Back to reality, eh? We told you y'all would be in for the day of reckoning after he retired with your salary cap. We told you.
Well, I mean, it's actually going pretty great, to be honest. The Saints are 5-2. You're looking at them potentially being a wild card team in the playoffs. And even with Jameis Winston out, you kind of feel like there's some sense of camaraderie, and Sean Payton will...
Oh, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear all that. All I know is that Drew Brees is gone, and we have a 2-game lead over you guys in the all-time series. A 2-game lead, Chris. Not 1, but 2.
What are you even talking about? We lost Drew Brees, and we're still better than you guys this season. And even last year, we didn't even have Drew Brees. Taysom Hill was starting, and he beat you guys both times. And I remember you guys were laughing about him starting on Twitter. You're calling him a tight end and all these funny names, and he beat you twice. So I don't understand your point.
Oh, I can't wait to watch you guys from the couch again choke in January. Okay.
Hello? Hello, you still there? You okay? You don't sound too great over there. Typical. These guys can never finish anything they start without choking. Anyway, guys, join me tomorrow for another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast, where we'll break down PJ Williams' game-winning interception on Tom Brady for the 100th time. Anyway, that's going to do it, guys. Have a great night, Who Dat Nation. Well, at least he was better than the Bucs fan from last week.
What a classic. What an absolute classic. We have over 400 people watching now across all platforms, and maybe half of them have finally saw that piece of cinematic brilliance for the first time ever. So, Chris, I never asked you, but in your 5-star rating, how would you rate that classic?
All right, so I'm going to go 4.5 out of 5, and I'll tell you why the half gets left out. So, I think my performance was a little robotic. It could have been a little better. I think if I ever get a second go around, I think I could do a better job. But the other problem, and not everyone will realize this, but our collaboration sunk the Saints that year. It wasn't Jameis Winston's injury. We collabed, and I think they went about like a month and a half straight with, forget about not winning a game. They were getting the shit kicked out of them for like 5 straight games. They went from 5-2 to like, what was it, 5-7 at one point? I don't remember what they got up to, but I messaged you after. I'm like, you messaged me and we started joking around. I'm like, I don't think we could ever do another collab at this moment. This is it. Like this, we jinxed the hell out of this team. So, but you were fantastic. I have a question for you though. What happens with that Matt Ryan shirt after? Like, does that get discarded? Do you keep it just in case you have another, like video you want? Like, I don't want to make you give away like your secrets, but What happens with that Matt Ryan shirt after?
No, I get my money's worth. One thing about Jono Barnes, he gonna get his money's worth. So I still have it, and I actually probably will utilize it. Even though Matt Ryan is long retired, as long as it is beneficial to the content. You see, that's the thing, though, Chris. That's the thing that I do for my goddamn community, right? Like I put on that atrocity of a jersey, not even a jersey, it's a jersey shirt or whatever. And even when I put it on, like I just feel real icky and yuck. But I do it for the community, man. And that is why it should be a 5-star, Chris. So, because me having that shirt on alone was worth 4 stars. But the acting that I did to capture what it is like to be an Atlanta Falcons fan, that's 5 out of 5 to me, Chris.
Well, I view this almost as like training day. I love training day, right? Denzel gets a 5 out of 5. So you get a 5 out of 5 for your performance and your dedication to your craft. But the movie itself, it's really good, but it could be a little bit better. So 4.5 out of 5 for the movie. But performance-wise, I mean, I would give you every Academy Award there is for your performance. The choking, the jersey that you had on, being able to come up with the screenplay. I mean, that's all used. So you get every award in the business. 5 out of 5 on performance. There's no question about it.
All jokes aside, the funny thing is, I guess I'm kind of like you. Like I'm my harshest critic whenever I go back, and that was my first year of doing the skits and the content. So like I look back on it, and I'm like, ooh, I could have made this look probably a little bit more natural on my end. Obviously, you being where you are and me where I'm at, we couldn't do it together. So we kind of got creative with how we can collab together while not being in the same city. But I'm just like you, Chris. Like I watch some of my old stuff, and I'm like, I think everybody who is a perfectionist, I guess, does that sometimes. Like I'm like, I could do that a little better. Like now that I have 3 years of experience of, being in front of a camera and doing skits, I could probably play that up a little better. But you are right about one thing, and that was that we went on a 5-game losing streak after that video. So even though people have been clamoring and saying, we want a sequel, we want more Jono and Chris content together, I don't know, Chris. I mean, granted, then again, we're trying to get Dennis Allen out the paint, so maybe we should do one again this year, Chris.
With our luck, they're going to go on a 10. Well, you know what? Then if they go on a 10-game winning streak, then we are winners. So I'll take that. It's a win-win. Either we jinx them and he gets out of here, or they go on a win streak. With our luck, they'll stay somewhere in the middle, go 7-10, and we'll be back here next July before training camp to be talking about whether or not it's a make or break year for Dennis Allen for the 4th time. That's what's probably going to happen. But I think it's worth a shot.
One thing I had fun with that skit was botching the hell out of your name, Rosvoglou, because I remember when I first discovered you, I probably botched your name so many times. This is before I even had an audience. Like when I would just show your tweets to my wife when you had some Saints analysis or whatever, and I would just botch the hell out of your last name, and she would always be like, I don't know how to really say his last name, Jono, but I'm pretty sure it's not Rosvoglou. And my guy Chad actually has a good comment. He says, Chris, you're on a lot of local sports talk around here, and I still don't know the correct way to say your name. So, Chris, can you let the people know how to properly pronounce your last name? And it's not Rosvoglou, folks.
I wish it was. Also, Ryan from, I think they changed it. I think it's Saints Block Party podcast. He had a great one, too, with how I pronounce it. But so, yeah, so the way to pronounce it is Rosvoglou. So Rosvoglou. And you talked about going back and watching your previous stuff. I go back sometimes because people message me and they're like, I want to have you on my show and I don't know how to pronounce your last name because you say it too fast. And I'll go back and I watch and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I'm like speed rushing through my name in the intro, and I still do it sometimes. So I'll take the blame on that one. But yeah, Rosvoglou, and just put it together pretty fast. And you got the last name there. But the way you did it was great. Like I'm not kidding. My algebra teacher for high school pretty much like said it the same way. And it wasn't as good as yours because yours had some like moxie to it. But I was like, man, I'm getting flashbacks from hearing it pronounced that way. So it was pretty good.
I'm not gonna lie though. Before this interview today, I went in the mirror and I say your name like you were the Candyman. I said it like 5 times. I said, let me make sure I get it Rosvoglou right. Rosvoglou. I'm like, I'm not gonna botch his name, but I think I like that you have a lot of fun with it. And again, Bruce Saint asked we do that in 2021. That was in 2021. We filmed it right after probably the highlight of the Saints fanaticism since Drew Brees just retired, which was the win over Tampa Bay. And since then it's been so I'll blame Chris for that, by the way. But we filmed that in 2021, and I'm just appreciative, Chris, because I always tell people like Ross and Jake, people who use their platforms to build me up, y'all don't have to do stuff like that. Like, y'all could be, cocky or whatever, but like, this guy doesn't have enough traction for me to utilize my platform and utilize my time to, help him out. But I will always be appreciative that you took time out while I was in my rookie season, I guess, of content creation to help me with that. That did huge wonders for me. Like, I was able to kind of capture some of your audience, and now I built this audience that I have, and it's because of people like you. So while I have you on the show, I really want to publicly give you your flowers for how great you've been to me. Because again, when I think I took notice of your account in 2020, and I was like, man, this guy is like, I don't know him, but like he has some great Saints analysis. I was really impressed with, like, it was during the Drew Brees fallout of him talking about the anthem or whatever and all that discourse of that. And you respectfully, rode for Drew Brees as a fellow Drew Brees fan, while not being insensitive to like why people were mad about those comments. And since then, you had me as a follower, but I was always like, man, it would be cool one day if I had like a platform like that to have Saints fans just kind of come to me as, a voice for the voiceless, I like to say. And you being so cool to help me along that way. People don't see that type of stuff. Like, people just see the numbers and, never really think about how that person elevated to that level. Me, it's because of people like you, Chris. So I've told you this before privately, but I'll tell you publicly so people can give you your flowers as they've been doing in the chat all night. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done for me in my content creation career. And I appreciate it every single day. You always humble about it, Christian. Like, nah, John, you built this on your own or whatever. But I'm telling you, man, like when you start from out the mud and you don't have anybody, like nobody woke up one day and say, I want to search Jono Barnes content. Like, you got to have people who kind of lift out their hand and say, I like what you're doing. I'm going to help you out a little bit. Investing in terms, you gave me a rub. It's when like established act works with an unknown act to kind of like make the fans say, oh, this guy is serious. Like if this established act is working with him. So Chris, all that to say, I'm blabbing. I appreciate the hell out of you. And you are, Chris, you didn't know, but you are my guy. This shit more than the game certified. I hope you know how much we love you here on the Jono Barnes Show.
Yeah, look, I will take the kind words because I truly do appreciate it. But I want to say, because so you mentioned that I'm a big movie guy, and my favorite movie ever, for people who don't know, is Good Will Hunting. And I think one of the main reasons is because of how good Robin Williams is. And the one thing I would say about you that, and I truly mean this, is there are certain people who they deserve all the credit in the world for, no matter like what your situation might be going on. Like if you watch their content, it's going to put a smile on their face and immediately put them in a better mood. I feel that way when I watch Robin Williams movies. I feel that way when I watch your content. And you might be like, no, Chris, that's ridiculous. I promise you, because I'm very vocal about like when I'm not in a good headspace and stuff.
Yep.
I've never been in a moment where I've watched something that you put out and I didn't have like a stupid smile on my face. Like, and you deserve all the credit for that. So that's I think you're nice as hell. And that's why I wanted to chat with you. But like to see how great this stuff you put out is, it's like, why wouldn't I spend time out of my day to share something you post or come on here and talk with you? Like you genuinely are awesome, and you deserve way more than a pat on the back, because there might be people who won't have the chance to tell you, like I am right now, that like what you put out there really does change people's mood for the better. But I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. So I hope you know the impact that could have. It may not creep on you every moment, but I hope there are some times where you get to like kind of sit down, lay down at night and be like, man, like I hope what I put out there did make people happy. And the answer would be resounding yes for that.
See, I from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that. But every time I'm trying to give like my guest flowers, they always flip it back to me. And I don't want that, Chris. This is your time. I know. I'm
just saying you deserve it though. Like literally everything you do is great. And like you mentioned Eric McCoy before. Like I sat there and it was a very long interview and it was fun as hell, man. Like it and you just continue to kind of evolve. Like you talk about your rookie season. I would say, like, if I'm being honest, it felt like in the beginning it was all skits. Now it's a mix of everything. Like you want skits, you want media personality, you want interview. Like you literally can get everything. So you deserve a lot of credit. A ton of credit. So I will take the flowers and I will go to a shop and I'll go buy some and I'll send them your way. So that's what I would do.
Smell them, Chris. Smell the flowers. Your interview with Eric McCoy was one that I watched as I prepped for my interview with him. So again,
he's great, man.
Your impact. I remember unprompted. My dad had came in the room when I was working, getting ready for my interview, and he was like, "Hey, this guy, Chris Rosvoglou, he didn't know how to say your name. He was like, he did an interview with Eric McCoy once." I say, yeah, man, Chris, almost damn near set the blueprint for what I'm doing. I still don't consider myself media, but in the past 3 years, I feel like, yeah, besides just doing a sketch, which I love to do, that's probably my biggest passion. I want to branch out and do other things too. And I look to people like you for inspiration or just motivation for the platform that you've built. So again, Chris, take your flowers. I appreciate everything you've done for my show. And if people don't know, Chris, not that they wouldn't, because you are. Look, we got over 425 people right now across all platforms watching. Let me tell you something, my brand. They don't do that when it's just Jono Bone solo, okay? So that's the Chris Rosvoglou stimulus package. But can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, so people could check out the podcast. It's been primarily on Boo Crew Media's YouTube page, but Straight Up Saints, like I mentioned before, I'm going to make sure I have a lot of videos, in the next 10 days or so that are out there. So even when I'm away, people kind of get some content to get excited. For training camp coming up, they could check out on X at Rosvoglou Report, which still feels weird to say on X, but I guess that's what it is now.
It's still Twitter. It's still Twitter.
It feels so weird, man. Like I still can't get around. And then Instagram's also Straight Up Saints and TikTok, although TikTok is sparingly used. I don't use it as much as I probably should, but I don't know if TikTok's the app where Saints content explodes on. It feels like stupid crap explodes on there and usually not Saints content, but who knows? I'll make sure to post regularly as we get closer to the season.
Well, Chris, I, of course, and everybody is looking forward to your training camp coverage. We're looking forward to your evergreen content and videos while you are out having a great time in Greece. And we look forward to your just rawness and realness during this season, whether it's good or bad. We know you're going to tell it like it is. And I even told you when you had me on your show, like, I don't know how you keep up, because maybe when I tweet during Saints games, I get like 20 to 30 replies per tweet. And I'm trying to be nice and like keep up and like respond back to people. You get like 60 or 70. And I'm like, how the hell can Chris actually watch the game when everybody's just kind of using your platform to let their opinion out? But you are always responsive and personable to your audience. And I think that energy just reflects, which is why a lot of people levitate towards you. So keep doing your thing, man. Let everybody know that it's Rosvoglou.
It is Rosvoglou. And before I go, I will remind people, like I said before, I'm going to put out content over the next kind of 10, 15 days, even though I'll be gone. And the reason is, as Jono knows, this shit more than a game. So it doesn't matter that I'm going out of the country. Saints content doesn't die. It has got to keep going on. So you guys will have stuff. Don't worry.
That was great, Chris. I just need a little bit more oomph, okay? I need a little more oomph. So let's try this again. Let's rewind it a little bit, okay? Chris Rosvoglou, can you tell the people why you stopped by the Jono Barnes Show?
I stopped by the Jono Barnes Show because this shit more than a game. That's why. You know why.
Hell yeah, Chris. Hell yeah. We can't wait to see your content as football season starts in 3 weeks, Chris. Thank you so much for taking the time out, man. We look forward to all of your content on the Boo Crew Media page and at Rosvoglou Reporter on Twitter. Thank you, my man. I love you, my guy. We'll be right back, guys, after a word from one of our sponsors.
No matter what, we all know that this shit more than a game, and now you can wear it with pride. Visit www.jonobarnes.com or thisshitmorethanagame.com and buy your This Shit More Than a Game shirt now for the low price of $28.03. You can buy it in black and gold, purple and gold, white and blue, red and navy blue, all types of colors. We've got you covered here on the Jono Barnes Show. So visit www.jonobarnes.com or thisshitmorethanagame.com and buy your This Shit More Than a Game shirt now. And let the world know, folks, this shit more than a game.
That was awesome, man. Chris has, like I said a few minutes ago, has just always been very opening to me and has always just been a great guy to have not just Saints conversations with, but life conversations. He's always authentically himself. He's always transparent. He even mentioned about like he's open about his mental health realities, and sometimes he's having good times in his life. Sometimes he's not having good times in his life, but he always makes himself an open book for people to come to him and have just great discussions. And as toxic as social media can be sometimes, someone like Chris is good to follow just to show the beauty and humanity. So I mean, I joke a lot, but everything I said about Chris to his face, I meant 100%. That guy is no doubt this shit more than the game certified, and we appreciate him taking time on my show to talk some Saints and just talk some life. And Someone else who is definitely this shit more than the game certified, Bruce Saint. I don't know if you're still watching. My guy, I have to do something for you. I don't know what. I promise you I am going to do something for you. We have never, this is the biggest super chat we have ever gotten on the show. I'm glad you did it when none of my co-hosts was on the show, so they can't say, some of that money should go to us. But geez, dude, $100, like, thank you. I promise you guys, every super chat we get, whether it's $100, whether it's $2.83, it's not like I take it. And my wife can tell you, I don't take her out on no fancy dinners. That's for sure. I don't take my wife out. I thought you were sleeping. Anyways, I take that money and I invest right back into the show. So, Bruce saying you have been, you've been funneling the show the whole offseason, to be honest. So, Bruce saying, man, thank you so much, Bruce Saint. We might as well just make this banner evergreen because Bruce Saint is always leaving super chats. And Bruce Saint, I hope you know that it's shit more than a thanks. All right, I promise you guys, with all these super chats we got, we are gonna. I've made it a personal goal to really take this channel to another level this upcoming season, because that's when I know that I get my biggest numbers, obviously. I'm not just the Saints channel, but I'm not dumb to not realize that the Saints is my biggest audience. So I know when football season starts, when training camp starts in 3 weeks, things are going to really start picking up. And then when preseason starts, and damn sure when the regular season starts, the numbers are going to really start picking back up again. And all the super chats we get and just personal goals that I have set, I'm going to try to give you guys top of the line quality content, but also obviously entertainment content, because it's not just a sports show, it's a sports and entertainment show. We try to blend that together to make the best damn sports entertainment show that you guys can possibly have, and let the world know that it all started here in New Orleans, Louisiana. So Bruce saying, man, again, offseason struggle is damn sure real, but what has not been struggle is your loyalty and your fanaticism to this shit more than the game community. I promise you, when I get together with the wifey and maybe Ziggy, we'll try to think of something cool to do for you. I hope that you're in the city, even go to one of the road games that I'm at, and we can link up one day, man, because you are, Bruce Saint, you are this shit more than the game certified. I appreciate all of you guys, for real. Like, again, dog days of the offseason, but to have I call you guys the foundation. I don't want to start naming names because then I'm going to start forgetting people. But, like, you got my girl Jana, you got Chad, you got Brittany, you got Real Fan Sports. Y'all check out his YouTube, by the way, as well. He does some great, not only Saints coverage, but just sports coverage in general. You got my cuz, Bad Juju. You got my girl Pammy Whammy. You got Carl. You got Will. We just got some great people who watch the show week in, week out. Jerry, Mikey, I got your voicemail. I don't do voicemails on the offseason as much, but I got you. I get all your voicemails, Mikey. I do St. John Butler. Like, again, I don't want Elite Goods. I'm not trying to go through all the names, but Dylan, all of you guys. Off was watching in Germany. My guy Off was watching tonight in Germany at 2 a.m. I'm losing my voice. At 2 a.m. Like, you guys are the foundation for what we are building, and I'm addicted to success, so I want more. I guess Chris kind of gave me some good epiphany when he said, sometimes, Jono, you should take a step back and kind of realize what you've built. Because sometimes I'm always just in a race for, okay, what can I do now? Like, I celebrate doing an interview with McCoy for 2 days, and I'm like, okay, what now? Who can I get? What level can I continue to achieve? I get a newspaper headline, and I'm like, okay, what now? How further can I take this brand and just this platform that I have? But all that to say, I appreciate you guys for joining us during these dog days of the off season. The good news is that in 3 weeks, training camp starts, so it's going to be a lot of things picking up. And obviously, I need to get my vocal cords ready, because Lord knows by September, I'm going to be yelling at the TV, yelling at this computer, yelling at Dennis Allen, yelling at Derek Carr. We'll see. But the fun is really about to start. So I hope you guys stay tuned, and I appreciate you guys for joining us during these dog days of the offseason. And my wife is right. Like, sometimes y'all call these things skits, but they're actually just documentary footage. My wife records me sometimes so she can present it to our marriage therapist, because she thinks I have a problem. I don't think I have a problem, but apparently I do. And the therapist is always taking her side, which I don't get. I'm going to be like, is this shit more than a game or not? I guess we're going to really find out in a few weeks, right? Now, y'all, before we close up the shop, I do want to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans right quick, because I have a burning question. It seems like we're not in a rush to trade Brandon Ingram. And so now the question starts to become, well, is Brandon Ingram going to be a New Orleans Pelican this season? And if he is, well, how does he fit now with DeJounte Murray and Zion Williamson and all of this talent that we have, but we only have one ball? I asked Jake about this last week, and he still feels like the Pelicans are going to trade Brandon Ingram to another team. But the Kings traded for DeMar DeRozan this past weekend, so now they're out the running. They don't need Brandon Ingram anymore. So now the question becomes, are we going to keep Brandon Ingram, in? Where does this fit? Because I feel like maybe Murray decides to take a step back as far as offensive shots that he wants to take, but there's only one ball, and I've seen enough of the data to say that I don't want to go too far into continuing to ride this Brandon Ingram Zion tandem. I feel like we've seen enough, and we need to really just 100% put all our eggs into the Zion basket. Ingram is a great player. I am not arguing that Ingram is not a great player. I am not arguing that losing Ingram makes us a better team. But sometimes to propel your team, you got to do addition by subtraction. And I am still of the belief that Ingram should be traded. I'm not going to be mad if he's a Pelican on opening night. Like, it is what it is. I don't think that the offense is going to look that great because, again, I feel like it needs to be Zion, Zion, Zion. And as selfish as B.I. can be, B.I. still believes that he's B.I. and he's going to want to get his shots too. And they just haven't worked for me as a fan. And clearly on the court, I mean, I know Zion hasn't played a playoff game, but we haven't really achieved much. So I want to know from you guys, do you guys think that, or how would you feel? How would you feel if we kept Brandon Ingram? Because Bad Juju says Ingram is probably going to stay, but we really need a center. And we'll see if the Cavaliers are winning. I mean, look, it's still a long offseason to go, so we don't have to trade Brandon Ingram tonight, right? Like, we got plenty of time. Hell, we can ride this until the trade deadline, February 2025, if we have to. I don't want to get stuck in a spot, though, where we keep B.I., we have a mundane playoffs again because the pieces didn't fit, and then Brandon Ingram walks for nothing. Like, at that point, I know this may not be the great. I mean, that's why I'm a fan and not a GM. But, like, I trade B.I. for depth. Like, it doesn't need to be a star-for-star trade. Like, I don't mind just getting some backup players for him that can solidify our bench a little bit or whatnot. Like, get something for him. Because I don't think that Brandon Ingram, even if he's a Pelican in 2024, unless we just have an amazing run and our patience finally was paid off, I don't think B.I. is going to be a Pelican in 2025, 2026. So I would hope that we get something. Not saying that we got to trade him tonight. I know we have time. We don't have to rush. We don't have to blink first when it comes to the negotiation tables. But I do believe that addition by subtraction would be the model if we did trade B.I. Slim John says he takes too many random fadeaways, and I do believe that we need more three-point shots on this team, which is why I'm also kind of – maybe we'll talk about this later on in another episode. Do we send CJ to the bench and finally let Trey Murphy start because he seems to be, worth investing in the future? My girl Jono, who's a huge Pelicans fan and a future all-star meteorologist, says – I think B.I. may stay on for less play, but they still need a starting big man. I mean, that seems to be the consensus across the Pelicans. Like, we need a center. And that guy that we signed this past Monday, he's solid, but he ain't going to move the needle, right? Like, I still believe, even with the DeJounte Murray trade, and even though I'm very excited about that, and I give David Griffin and Bryson Graham all the love in the world for making that trade happen, if you ask me today, I still don't think the Pelicans are at a spot where we've done enough to move up the ladder in the Western Conference. Hell, with John Moran coming back, I can still see Memphis leaping us. Depends on the growth of Wemby. The Spurs might be able to leap us. I still think we need a move or two to not be stuck in la-la land of the 7-8 seed play-in game every year and hoping that Zion is healthy. So we'll see what they do. I'm of the belief that we need to make a move, though. I'm not saying it has to be tonight. I'm not saying that we got to just take anything that some team offers. But at some point, I do think Chad says homie needs to wake up. Looks like he is sleeping a high. It ain't the sleep. Trust me. It ain't the sleep. At some point, and maybe DeJounte Murray comes in and he just fixes everything and everything works beautifully. But I've been trained as a Pelicans fan to always expect the worst. So, again, I'm not like anti-B.I. He's a great player. He's been great for the organization. He's been great for the city, but business is business. And I do believe that the Pelicans need to make a another big move if we're going to. I mean, look, if we're at the point now, we're in what, year 6 going into the Zion era. You got to start swinging. Like, you can't be on the defense saying, you know, let's see when we're healthy, or let's see if it works out this year. You got to start swinging. And if you miss, if you strike out at the home plate, guess what? Ain't like you've been hitting home runs anyway. It ain't like we've been going on these crazy ass playoff runs anyway. So ain't nothing really going to change. So you might as well swing for the fences and see what happens. That's just my thought. But we'll see what happens. I am very happy to have DeJounte Murray on the team, though, and look forward to finally having some legitimate excitement when it comes to the Pelicans and not just, oh, Zion has a beard, y'all. Woo, wow, what a great offseason, right? Like, come on now. Come on now. Anyways, guys, I think that's enough talk that we've had. Again, the dog days of the offseason, but yet here we are, and we still have over 475 people watching. Well, hold on. Let me do this right quick. If you're watching on YouTube, please just do me one favor. Hey, fans, hit the subscribe button in 3 seconds to make this Falcons fan sad. 3, 2, 1. It only takes 1 second, y'all. It only takes 1 second to hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Let's continue to make this algorithm push the Jono Barnes channel onto all sports fans so we can make this channel and make the This Shit More Than a Game brand the biggest damn thing going. I appreciate you all. Here's some good news. Is again, training camp starts now in less than 3 weeks. So I do think that the fun and relevant conversation is really about to start picking up in a few weeks. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the show the next few weeks because I have some obligations to my actual 9-to-5 employer. And here's some good news though. As much as people hate Evan hit me up today saying, yo, Jono, you want to come to Dallas? I might have a connect to go to the All-Star game, the MLB All-Star game. I was like, shit. I ain't gonna never turn down a free ticket, and I ain't the biggest baseball fan, but you give me a free ticket to the MLB All-Star game, my ass will be there in Dallas, right next to Evan in his stupid Cowboys hat, screaming, this shit more than a game to all those baseball players who ain't gonna know what the hell I'm talking about. And I know we ain't got no New Orleans baseball team, but God damn it, when this shit is more than a game, this shit is more than a game. So we'll see. I'm either gonna be on this show next week, or if I'm not on the show, just know that I'm in Dallas having the time of my life at the MLB All-Star game. And that is why I keep Evan Barnes on the show, y'all. But if I'm not on for these next few weeks, maybe I'll find time to go on a random day. But it will start to pick up during training camp. And, of course, preseason. We got a big announcement coming up for August. I want you guys to really, really be on the lookout for that because I'm really excited about this. And then the season will be here before you know it. And I think I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling in my bones that the world is going to know that this shit is more than a game. It ain't got nothing to do with the Saints win or loss record. The world is going to know that this shit is more than a game. I appreciate y'all. One more time, let's give some love. I wish Ziggy was on the show. I could get the air horns for my guy, Chris Rosvoglou. I look forward to seeing you guys, whether in 1 week, whether in 2 weeks. Don't worry, I will be back. And I will let the world know, folks, it's shit more than a game. Appreciate you.
Jono.